We are recording.
Thank you, Juan. Did you want to do a quick little screenshot, or are we good?
I can wait until we get to the visitor section if you like, Mr. Chair.
That would be fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Would you like me to do it now?
What do you think, Lynn? I don't see Rachel. Is Rachel with us today? Or am I just?
Yeah, she's here.
Okay. All right.
It looks like I know we're expecting at least one more person to speak in the meeting. So maybe let's go ahead and do the quick intro one, and then we can kind of go from there.
Perfect.
All right, sounds great. Thank you. So I'm just gonna post on your screen for those of you who are joining us. On your screen, you'll see the instructions for you to provide public comment. Please use the raise hand function. If you are calling us by phone, please use the keypad on your phone and dial star key followed by the number 9. When the time comes for you to provide your public comment, we'll provide you the ability to unmute, and then you'll be able to provide your comment. Again, please use the raise hand function. If you are on the phone, dial star 9 to raise your hand. Thank you.
Cindy, you are muted.
Yep, I just unmuted myself. Yes, I've got a tricky screen for some reason. Probably user error. Roll call. I'm sure, Kathy, you've done roll call for us already.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And, you know, speaking of public comment, we did receive some written public comment that the committee received before the meeting today. So I want to acknowledge those of you who submitted written comment that we did get your information. So thank you very much. Is there anyone attending that would like to take a moment to provide public comment for us? And if so, raise your hand.
Nothing so far. Yes, there is. I will unmute because I don't know. It's a phone number 828-406. You can talk now. You have to click
and if you're on the phone, you'll need to dial star 6 to unmute yourself now that you've been provided the ability to unmute. And this is, go ahead.
Hello.
This is
Jacob Clark with Ben Redmond Habitat for Humanity. I apologize, I'm calling in. But I did want to take a moment and just bring an idea, I guess, to the Affordable Housing Committee's attention, as many affordable housing builders are looking to become developers as a way of saving some costs. We've realized that it's kind of a two-part scenario. We're currently doing a development that requires improvement of 27th Street between Bear Creek and Reed Market. And in general, I don't know how much of this process the board is aware of, but many developers can recoup some of their improvement costs through SDC transportation credits when they sell the lot. Obviously, we're exempted from SDCs, and that's a fantastic part, due in large part to this board. And so what we've noticed is that can be a substantial cash flow inhibitor to getting the projects off the ground. And just wanted to bring it to the Affordable Housing Committee, as many builders like Core, Building Partners, or ourselves at Habitat start branching into this development realm. That can be a significant cash flow scenario right at the front end of the project. And so larger developers have the opportunity to pay a payment in lieu and save on timeline. As many of our projects are smaller in scope, we don't have the opportunity to do a payment in lieu for expanding public right away. And so I just wanted to bring it to the attention. I'm sure the great minds of the Affordable Housing Committee can mull it around and see if there's a viable option in allowing affordable home builders to recoup that upfront cost. So on the fiscally constrained list, I think it's page 3 on the notes I sent in, you'll see the percent growth amount at 27% for the 27th Street road improvement between Bear Creek and Reed Market. And often that percent growth amount is the percent available back to the developer through SDC transportation credits. Whereas Habitat simply pays the money and doesn't recoup that percent growth amount, obviously because we're exempted from SDC credit. So I don't really have the best solution outside of, you know, an opportunity for payment in lieu or a way of recouping that cost, even if it's transferring it to another project, would reduce our need to put a percentage of our projects at market rate and allow us to build more affordable units. So that's my public comment.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, the information that you sent us, that was really interesting to read, and we'll probably review that as a committee, and we'll probably have more questions. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. We'll see what we can do to come up with a couple of ideas, because we do have a great committee, I must say, shamelessly. Are there any other public comments? I'm looking, I don't see any other hands raised.
I don't see any.
Okay, great. Thank you. So now you all received the October minutes. So I'll move to approve those unless anyone has any questions or clarifications.
So moved.
All right. Okay, my brain is so full today. Do we need to take a vote on approving the minutes? Yes. All right. Sorry about that.
Did you hear my motion, Cindy?
I did hear the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, I will go in all in favor, and I'm going to look at the screen and I'll list your names. All in favor. If you're in favor, please raise your hand, and then I'll say it out loud for the record. Matt Martino. Is an yes. Ian Schmidt. Yes. Joanna Gardner. Yes. Heather Simmons.
Yes.
Yes. Allison Hohengarten. Thank you. Is a yes. Kathy Austin.
Yes.
Yes. Keith Wooden. Yes. Thumbs up. Priscilla Buck. I don't see your face. You can unmute and say your vote. Does anyone else see Priscilla? I don't see her. Gosh, maybe she had to step away for a minute. I don't know.
It's
Looks like her
called that.
camera may be turned off.
Yeah, and abstain maybe just to, for the time being.
Right. Okay, we'll put her vote down as abstain. And meetings pass. All right, as you all probably remember, the last meeting we had, we run long on time, but we had so much good information to review. And Amy from CORE and Coiner Hollow, they both agreed to come back to this meeting to present their information for us. So I'd like to have Amy come up, and Lynn or Rachel, is there anything else you want to say to preface Amy's presentation and request?
So Amy hasn't called in yet. I just phoned her to see what might be keeping her delayed. And
Okay.
Of course, she's working on Purita. So she should be calling in the next 10 minutes if we might go forward with Coiner Hollow and then have Amy join us afterwards.
And say Amy just popped up also.
Oh,
good. Juan, can we move Amy?
I just
Oh, good.
I just unmuted her. Do you want me to move her?
Amy, do you care if you're on camera or not?
Amy,
Yeah.
you should, there you go.
Okay, I don't care. No, thank you. Hi.
Okay, thank you.
I'll go ahead and introduce Amy then, now that we're ready. Great.
Thank
So,
you.
Last year, this committee awarded affordable housing funding for CORE in an amount of $50,000 in case an original purchaser of the Hurita home sold within this past year. Hurita was waiting quite a long time for state funding, but they are so close to being done. And I think even today, future homeowners were out there kind of checking things out. It's going to happen really soon. But Amy wanted to maintain that funding and utilize it for something a little bit different. And this is her presentation to do so. I just need to share my screen so that you can see her slide. Can everyone see that?
Yes, at least I can.
Actually, I think I shared the wrong. Let's try this again. New. Not what I want to share. All right, is there a slide sharing?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's good.
Thank you. Go ahead, Amy.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. So yeah, we're requesting to reallocate that down payment assistance from, kind of general interim down payment assistance to be specific to the Cornerstone project. That project currently has $100,000 in down payment assistance allocated for the 4 affordable homes that we have. One thing that this will allow us to do, and I think is probably important to say that the down payment assistance money doesn't go directly to this, but it allows for some of our other permanent subsidy to be allocated for this, is a stewardship fee that we can charge with each sale. This isn't a fee that necessarily comes from the home purchaser, but is just a fee that accompanies the transaction. We learned about this sort of thing from our peers at Proud Ground, which is the community land trust up in Portland. And it was kind of at the beginning of COVID, and we were meeting with their development director, deputy director, and asking about different ways that they sustain operations through their through running their nonprofit like a business, essentially. And they said that they charged the stewardship fee for each new sale of a home, both the first time and subsequent sales. And it goes towards things that their organization has to do staffing wise to basically steward the program. So this is a list of a few of the things it goes to. So homebuyer education and information sessions with Cornerstone, we did 5 sessions that are about an hour and a half each for first-time purchasers. Then we're going to do homebuyer education, additional homebuyer education as right before the time of move-in of the house. For our home buyer specific or education and the finance education, they go through Neighbor Impact for that, not through us. We also do one-on-one program qualification counseling with each recipient. The real estate transaction facilitation, at 5%, we would be compensating a broker if we were listing these homes on the market to do the work that we're essentially performing, for about $13,700. We facilitate the HOA through time. We hold a non-voting seat on the HOA. and also assist the HOA with continuing education over time. We also maintain a homeownership program management database that not only helps us with our intake and application process, but also to track metrics that we want to report on, intake and exit surveys, all kinds of great stuff. So this fee basically goes towards our staffing and other incidentals that allow us to steward these homes over time. And like I said, the reallocation of this down payment assistance does not go directly to this fee, but it allows us to use other subsidy that we're bringing in towards this fee. And I can answer questions if anyone has any.
Amy, I have a quick question. This is Matt. With the reallocation of the 50,000, is that going to negatively impact the potential buyer's ability to qualify for homes by reducing their amount of subsidy?
I don't know, Matt, is it?
Depends on the borrower, right? I just wanted to make sure that it's not tapping out the reducing the amount of down payment assistance to the point where you're going to not have buyers.
Oh, it's giving them more down payment assistance. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes. So instead of having $100,000 of down payment assistance between 4 home buyers, we'll have $150,000 of down payment assistance.
Got it.
Which means, so I think it's, I'll back up a little bit and explain kind of, I have visuals for this too, but I didn't send them to Rachel because I didn't anticipate needing them. But when we're selling our homes at Cornerstone, the sale price for each home is $274,000. What goes into that purchase is a layer of things. One of the big pieces is obviously the first mortgage. For the middle income buyer, that first mortgage plus their buyer provided down payment pretty much gets them to the $274,000. For our homes that are sold to the low income buyers, generally between that first mortgage amount that they qualify for that does not cost burden them and the purchase amount of $275,000, there's a bridge, and that bridge is filled by down payment assistance partially. We can use, I believe with CDBG, and Rachel, you can confirm if it's the same for affordable housing fee funds, but up to $50,000 per home. But the rest of that is brought in by a permanent subsidy loan from the program. So our joint venture with Housing Works would contribute the rest of that money. So those parts that go into the home are the first mortgage, any owner buyer contributed down payment assistance, and a permanent subsidy loan. It's that permanent subsidy loan that we can reduce a little bit if we get additional down payment assistance and then reallocate it to our stewardship fee.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask, and I'm new on the committee, what again was the $50,000 allocated to originally?
It was for down payment assistance. Our request at the time, though, I guess the purpose of that down payment assistance was just in case any home at our first development sold before our second before another round of down payment assistance was available. Because of our delay in state funding, we haven't even sold them the first time. So them selling the second time is obviously not going to happen before the next round of funding comes through. So we just want to reallocate it from second sale to first sale.
I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my question, this stewardship fee of $8,000, that's per sale for the first sale and then every sale in perpetuity? Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. Yep. And that is a number we got from Proud Ground. It wasn't just something that we pulled out of the sky. So there was some research done into the amount and what it goes towards.
Could I ask a quick
Great, thank
question?
you.
Of course. Hi, Kathy.
Hi. I'm not a financial wizard, so I don't necessarily understand all the ins and outs, but I'm assuming like these funds, this 8,000 per sale, if you're not needing it for a while for like subsequent sales, you're earning interest on the money, right? It's gaining interest somewhere. It's not just, I guess there's a buffer where you're able to earn interest on your money. Yes.
So our core operating account does, we do store money that is not necessary for the current month's operations in a money market.
Okay, thank you.
Amy, this is Keith. I had a quick question too. So this in theory is an increase in fee for core. Have you got the blessing of your lender and the state to do this?
Of the lender, Washington Federal
Yeah, and OHCS.
and OHCS.
Yeah.
Well, OHCS has already approved our ground lease, and our ground lease states an allowance, a percentage allowance for what they call it, a transaction fee. We call it a stewardship fee because we thought that was more palatable. But yes, Washington Federal, they're not doing the takeout mortgages, so I'm not sure that they would have anything to say about that.
I mean, because normally these deals are cooked, everybody agrees to them, and you're 75% through, and you're changing a fee. I mean, I know I would get a lot of questions on one of my deals if we did that too. That's why I'm asking the question. Have you talked to everybody about it?
Yeah, no, I haven't talked to Washington Federal. I'm happy to see if they feel like that is something that might involve them. My assumption is as long as we pay off our construction lending, that's kind of, after we pay off our construction lending, unlike OHCS left funding, Washington Federal is out of the picture.
Yeah, and I guess I wasn't as concerned with WAFED as it was OHCS, because they are sticklers on what you present when, I mean, even if your lift funds were not a huge part of the deal, your pro forma to them, they're going to make you stick to that when you close it out. And if there's something that's in there, I mean, for example, like a fee, but it sounds like you've already covered that in your lease agreement. I would put it past your loan officer just to make sure. Just some advice, that's all.
Thank you.
Thanks. You bet.
We also did, Keith, run it by David Brandt, and he very much approved the concept.
Sure.
Hey, Amy, Ian Schmidt here. A question for you, and it may be that I just missed it in the items that were sent out before the meeting. Was the backup for the $8,000 fee sent in your notes and comments? I'm not, and again, I may have just missed it. I'm a little curious about where that 8,000 number comes from, and I'm confident there's good reason behind it. I'd just like to see what it is.
Well, the 8,000 doesn't cover exactly what we're looking at here. Over time,
right,
they will. But between all of these bullet points here, the costs of both staff time and, paying for the database and, the marketing and all that kind of stuff associated with the home buyer program. Not just at the beginning, but throughout time.
Yeah, I certainly see this as an incremental, just one piece of the puzzle. You mentioned previously that there was, a rationale behind it and where that came from. I'd just like to see what it is. And curiosity.
Like our discussion with the other community land trust, is that what you're curious about?
I think that's what you referred to as where you got this number from. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they actually, Proud Ground, I believe, tracks all of their staff hours. They have a much larger staff than we do, that goes towards any sort of stewardship to the program. And they decided on this $8,000 per sale, because the homes are, stewarded through time, and you never know how long an individual is going to be in their home, or how many times it will sell, or how many transaction fees over time will be gathered. It is not an exact science, but what they felt was an accurate representation of the work that they put in.
So it sounds like you're using them as a sort of precedent for this fee, and anticipating that since you're doing similar work, you're going to have, in the end, similar costs. And so making this fee equal to theirs is sort of a rational precedent-based decision.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. The real estate transaction facilitation, I'm trying to understand that comment that you would actually, this fee would represent a $5,700 savings over that fee. Is that a set fee that buyers are currently, or CORE is currently incurring for each sale? And are you saying that CORE will take over all the work that is represented by that fee, and thus saving the $5,000? I just don't understand what you're saying there.
For the real estate transaction duties?
Yes.
Yes. So obviously we don't have the same sort of marketing that a realtor would for these homes, but it is a good amount of work in a different way. And as far as, right now I'm working with all of the title companies, and we'll be touching base with the homeowners, lenders, and coordinating all the paperwork and the land lease, and, things that a realtor normally would be doing.
So these are current expenses that are current services that you're already providing, and you are equating them now with a commercial broker, but they are services you're currently providing. So this is not an actual dollar savings to the buyer. Am I correct?
Correct.
I've got a question. Am I okay to go, Cindy?
Yes, go ahead.
And I'm not sure what I missed. I'm having a hard time understanding what is in front of us, other than the change of the use of the 2019 affordable housing funds that were awarded from down payment assistance to down payment assistance for an initial home purchase. And I don't understand where the stewardship fee is coming from, or why it's in front of us. Is it because it's a change in your overall structure? And I apologize if I just missed something in the beginning there, but I'm confused.
No, I think I wanted to help everyone understand, if we do receive that extra down payment assistance money for the Cornerstone home buyers, although it doesn't directly go to this, it allows this to be retroactively added as project income for us. So you're right, I probably could have just come in and say, I just want to reallocate. but I wanted to explain a little bit of the why.
So you're reallocating essentially to pay for this stewardship fee, is that correct?
To allow us to put other funds towards the stewardship fee instead of supplementing down payment assistance, correct?
Okay.
I still don't feel terribly clear on this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say.
No, it's,
I feel maybe I complicated things by bringing up the stewardship fee at all.
But if that's where the money's going now instead of down payment, and I understand how you've reallocated things, but it's like it's fees that weren't in front of us before, I guess. So now we're kind of in a position where we're looking at new fees that are being
So I think the funds will still go to down payment assistance in one way or another. However, some of that may go towards this stewardship. And I think Amy's showing us that this is part of the deal now. And she's showing us that it's common for these types of transactions to take place, and is utilizing the Proud Ground example, that she's not coming up with this out of left field. Is that correct, Amy?
That's correct. And Proud Ground was the only community land trust I talked to. I'm on the board of the Northwest Community Land Trust Coalition, so it's really nice to have access to all of those peers and to understand what they've been doing. And really, our organization, CORE, because we're young, came into this way to run our nonprofit like a business and sustain our operations through our project work, kind of a little bit late in the game. So while this was not in the pro forma for our very first project, it is now in the budget for the 8th Street cottages and will continue to be in the budget for all of our future projects.
Since our original allocation of 50,000 was for a scenario that didn't actually come to fruition, we now have to allow them to continue to use this 50,000 for down payment assistance. We just have to change the verbiage for it.
I'm not sure that's accurate.
Oh, I'm so happy to see Justin's hand up. I was about to text him and say, come on, Justin, you're a realtor. Help us out here.
Wow. I'm as confused. I'm starting to get it, but I was initially as confused as everybody else as exactly what this is about. But at least particularly for your first project, I would assume that all these costs are already all baked into your land lease, are they not? I mean, so this is really just a way for CORE to increase revenues and increase profit margin.
That's a good question, Justin, because no, they're not. At the land lease is very low. It's $50 a month, and when you look at just the homeowner program management database, what that costs per year, in addition to all of the other stewardship things that come along with running the community land trust, that fee doesn't cover it. It was a nice idea, and in interviewing other community land trusts, they say the exact same thing, that fee is an important piece of the land lease, but it doesn't cover the stewardship.
So how were you initially planning on? I assume you had to have these covered at some point. You weren't going to doing these at a loss, but how were you planning on covering these costs to begin with? And I'll follow up with another comment, I guess.
Yeah, no, to be honest, we were, just basically fundraising events, donors, all of this kind of stuff to cover these costs that, what our staff does. And after it kind of came about the realization that this is how other community land trusts are doing it, because we spoke with Proud Ground's development director when COVID hit and asked, how are you guys, what is the main way you pay for your staff time that runs your homeownership program and all this kind of stuff? And this was one of the things they told us. They also have an on-staff realtor. So in addition to charging this $8,000 fee, Proud Ground also charges a 3.5% real estate transaction fee for handling it in-house.
Okay. Yeah, and so I think the real estate transaction fee, and Cindy can chime in on this as well, but to say 5%, or honestly even 3.5%, that's really not where market is per realtor. Because what happens is, yeah, we might charge a seller 5%. Well, half of that automatically goes to a buyer's agent, so it's 2.5%. And I understand you guys need to, you have costs and you need to pay for them, but to me, I think it really muddies the water to say, hey, well, we act as realtors, we do realtor type activity, and so we should be compensated for that. Well, I think the real estate commission would say, go get a real estate license, first off, but then, it is a little misleading because you're not paying a buyer's agent, 2.5% right out of the top of that. And so to overinflate, the savings or the cost of real estate transactions, to me is a little bit a bridge too far. But I assume that this will come to council at some point. And we'll have to, does council have to vote on this, or Lynn, can you comment on that?
Yeah, so for change of use that's substantial, typically it would go through AHAC and then council. If AHAC says yes, you'll see it. If AHAC says no, you probably won't.
Okay.
You won't see it.
All right, well, then I feel better about asking my questions and not letting the committee just do the work. So thanks for the time.
Thank you, Justin. I see, Ian, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So Amy, I've really appreciated watching CORE grow. It's been exciting to see the let's figure it out approach of a new way to approach affordable housing in Bend. And as the minutes show, I've at various points been skeptical, and it seems like CORE has really pulled off wonderful projects and is doing wonderfully, and I appreciate that. And so I come from a position of being supportive of CORE and the land trust model, probably later than many of my colleagues on this committee. And so I'm curious, what it sounds like to me is that CORE has realized that there are additional costs that, especially with a lack of capacity for fundraising during COVID, there's just really a struggle to cover them. And so CORE is doing what they can to find ways to cover those budgetary gaps to keep the organization going. And I'm strongly in favor of CORE continuing to be a viable enterprise. And so no offense meant if I'm misunderstanding this, but it looks like to me, CORE is trying to find ways to have more revenue stay in-house, just to support costs that, as you say, are ongoing and are real, but were not previously considered in the pro formas. Is that accurate, or am I missing something here?
No, I would say, well, I think that what you just said was accurate. It was not previously considered in the pro forma. It's not something that I, as a new community land trust director, was even aware of, that all of these other organizations, community land trust organizations, were doing. It's a part of the puzzle that I wasn't aware of until recently. And Proud Ground was telling me that when they look at staff expansions and growing their organization, they really do look towards their projects as the means to do that, and the income that they can bring in from their work.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I think it absolutely makes sense that we would consider this, or that you would consider this, include it in budgets going forward. I am personally more hesitant to approve this for something that it feels like we're adding in additional fees and capitalization or revenue growth for something that has already been approved. It feels like not the right way to do that. But that's my feeling. And of course, I'm just learning about this, so just mulling it over. Thank you, Cindy. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ian. That was really good, excuse me, insight. I have a question, Amy. This $8,000 fee, you know, costs go up all the time. Sadly, it's a reality of life. It seems to me like maybe a percentage would be per sale would be more realistic. $8,000, maybe 5 years from now, that's not going to be enough to cover. So then do you have to ask for an increase in that? What does that look like? Like, can you walk me through that and why it's not a percentage?
Yeah, that's a good point. In our land lease, it is listed as a range. So we're allowed to charge up to 5% of each home sale in a transaction fee or a stewardship fee, which is also another number that we received after examining other community land trusts in the Northwest. Obviously, this $8,000 is a lot less than 5% of our home sales. We like the way the land lease is worded because it will allow us to increase that in the future need be, but it will also allow us for that amount to be zero if we don't have the subsidy there to cover it.
Okay, so when your land lease, you can get it a range up to 5%. So this 8,000 is not in addition to what's already in the land lease for that up to 5% compensation?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, that's my question. Let's see, I'm looking to see if there are any more hands raised. I don't see any other hands raised. Thank you for your questions. It is quite a bit for us to take in. Thanks for all of the participation. We do have in our minutes a sample motion for this change of use request. And we can, if someone wants to take that on and we get to discussion and vote, I see that's where our next step is without any additional comments from anybody.
Can I ask one additional question?
Yes.
What happens with the money, if we don't approve the motion or we don't bring forward the motion? Does it sit there until the homes do become available for resale? Can you walk us through that? Or do we take the money back, or what might happen here?
Amy, can you address that?
I cannot, but maybe Rachel can.
So it would go back into the Affordable Housing Fund.
The $8,000 would go back?
No, the $50,000.
The $50,000.
For you to reallocate in the future.
And what would that, I mean, it would take a long time to get to 50,000 for 8,000 per sale if there's only 2 sales a year. So what does that look like? Or am I making it a little more confusing than it is? That's my question with that.
You're making it a little more confusing than it is. The $50,000 would still go to down payment assistance. It would just save core money in other areas so that they could do the stewardship fee.
Great, thank you. Because when I wrote down what Amy said, I wrote, it's reallocating the funds. So in my brain, when I reallocate something, it goes from here to there and it's not available here anymore. So thank you for clarifying that, Rachel. Maybe somebody else had the same thought process. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to propose a motion and make that motion?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Perfect. Yeah, I think this was a little bit kind of befuddled, but and mixed up. But my understanding is that it's still going to go towards down payment assistance, which is going to be absolutely key right now, especially with how costs are increasing almost quarterly. I move to approve the change of the 2019 Affordable Housing Funds awarded to Core Community Land Trust from down payment assistance for a possible second purchase down payment assistance for the initial home purchases.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Kathy Austin with a second.
So can we discuss?
Yes.
So Matt, I look to you as really understanding this. I've gotten very confused over this whole conversation. Can you explain, you said it's still going to go to down payment assistance regardless. So are you feeling that this is something that we should support, knowing who you are and your information that you have?
Yeah, so there's lots of fun things we can do on the lending side when it comes to these community land trust homes. And ultimately, down payment assistance is a huge cog in being able to get super low to moderate income families into these things. There's tricks we can play, but there's only so many tricks we can get, and then sometimes there's still a gap. So it's my understanding that initially this $50,000 was allocated for a possible second purchase on these homes. Am I correct, Rachel and Lynn? Since we haven't gotten, go ahead.
That's correct.
Yeah, so since there hasn't even been an initial purchase on these, there's no need for down payment assistance on a second. So this is moving from a second down payment assistance pool, and it's being added to the initial down payment assistance pool. In my eyes, that's essentially the same thing. It's just helping the initial acquisition more with more money in that pot. By allowing that to happen, it's freeing up other funds to help CORE then provide these services and recoup the stewardship fee. In all actuality, all that this $50,000 is doing is moving from a second purchase down payment assistance to a first.
Right. So we're not actually approving anything that has to do with the stewardship fee. That's sort of internal for them, that we're just moving it from the second sale to the first sale as to support that mortgage assistance.
Yeah, that's what my motion was.
So, okay, because I mean, I was listening to Justin and I certainly understand, his concerns. We don't want people pretending to be realtors that aren't and that kind of thing. But it sounds to me like, there's room for them to kind of massage what the stewardship fee is doing. But for the immediate ask, it's just moving this mortgage assistance from the second sale to the first sale. And that's really what we're voting on right now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So can I ask so the stewardship fee is that irrelevant essentially to this conversation then?
I see Justin shaking his head, Counselor.
Well, so the way I understood it, and I will readily admit that I was massively confused by a lot of this conversation. So I very likely have this wrong. But my understanding was that it was from not first sale to from second sale to first sale, but it was more moving this from their second development to their first development. Maybe I missed that because why would you be putting down payment assistance for a second sale on a property when you don't know when it's going to sell? So I thought this was a coordination timing issue between one development to the next development and when they're using what down payment assistance, not looking at one, they sell a home to a property or to a new buyer, and then that buyer sells it to another buyer. Not all in the same house. Like you wouldn't set aside 50 grand for something that might happen 10 years down the road. I mean, we couldn't. I don't think we could do that anyway. I think there's timing issues.
Well, Justin, this is Amy. From the way I understand it, Habitat, for example, I believe has a pool of down payment assistance because after this first sale, which is relatively predictable, when a subsequent sale happens, we don't know. The funding cycle for down payment assistance only comes around once a year. and we don't know in that time how many homes are going to resell. Is that correct, Rachel? So it's important to have a pool available for
Well, this
for
would be our
buyers.
first land trust property. So Habitat doesn't have a pool because their initial sale is their only initial sale until their land trust gets started, which it hasn't yet either. So this was approved last year as money set aside in case there was an initial sale within the first year of someone moving in. And then if that sale wasn't going to happen, what was proposed is it would go back to the Affordable Housing Fund.
Oh, so it had a timeline, a time limit on it.
It did.
Okay.
And then Rachel, that timeline, because there hasn't been any sales this first year because of the delays with, I'll just say the 2020 delays, that kind of captures a lot of delays that we all had. That's the reason for this step. That's part of the puzzle, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, all right. Okay, that makes more sense to me.
So is it possible for us to revise that timeline given what's happened as an alternative?
Well,
Why
that
wouldn't we
might be,
just add it to their initial down payment assistance pool? The one
And
that
that's
doesn't have a timeline.
Yeah, I'm
correct.
just sort of still getting confused by the stewardship fee because
Yeah.
it's not, it seems to me that it's not related to the money that was awarded.
Heather, I apologize, and I apologize to the rest of the committee too. I feel like by bringing up the stewardship fee, I've really muddied the waters of the discussion. And it's just one, sometimes it's maybe that one of those instances where I offered too much information. I thought it would be helpful to understand what this would allow us to do. And I don't think it's helpful.
Well, so really how I see it, and Amy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're asking to do is instead of setting aside this $50,000 for a potential second sale if it happened within the first year of your initial buyer buying it, you're really asking, hey, can we use that $50,000 to add to our first buyers so we can charge an additional $8,000 per sale? Is that what that's, to me, that's what it kind of seems like.
Yes, by us bringing in less core specific subsidy and using more down payment assistance subsidy, we are capable then of implementing this fee retroactively.
Do you feel that there's do you have any problem with changing the goalposts? I assume you already have buyers already lined up. Now you're going to add an additional $8,000 fee onto them. Now you're asking the city actually to pay that for them. So maybe it's not something that they totally realize. But do you see any issues with changing the rules kind of midstream?
Well, no, I don't see any issues with changing.
That's as
this
valid of
midstream.
his answer as anything. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Apart from the things that Keith brought up, which are both, it's a good thing to check with the lender and make sure that they're okay, and check with OHCS, doing the due diligence. But really what the buyer ends up paying is not affected by this. Their monthly affordability is not affected by this. It's something that allows us to do our work sustainably in the future.
The only thing it does affect the amount of people that the city can actually help, though. And to me, I think that's probably the question for the committee is, are you okay with helping out less people so that way CORE can have a more sustainable model?
I think that's pretty well put, Justin. And it seems to me that the question is this committee willing to support CORE being an ongoing enterprise, because there are costs that do need to be addressed? This would help CORE address some of those costs. The end resident of these units, as I understand it, would not have this fee come out of their pocket, but it does come out of the city's. And so there's fewer people that could potentially be helped, but what we gain is hopefully an organization that we support would be able to have a little more financial security and stability, is what that seems like to me.
And having that financial security and stability allows us to serve more people, Justin, in the long term.
Amy,
So-
maybe, Cindy, can I speak real quick?
Yes, Keith, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So in a macro scale, Amy, I don't know if you can discuss this now or later, but you went into the deal with a certain expectation for a certain fee or whatever, and there's probably been bumps along that road. If you could establish that your expectations were not what you went into the deal with, I think that would be super helpful for your conversation in asking for what you're hearing from a lot of people on this call is an increase in revenue for a deal that's already been baked. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Yeah, I guess I can say that this fee will be part of our program going forward with every project. And I didn't know about it when we did our pro forma, our budget for this first project. But it is a very important key piece to our long-term sustainability and growth.
Thank you, Amy. Hey, I have been notified that we've got a bit of a schedule challenge with Carolyn, who is presenting the housing continuum. So I have been given the option that maybe with this discussion, maybe we can have Amy come back at our next meeting. And in the meantime, we can get some more of our questions answered. That is an option. Carolyn does have a commitment at 3:15, and I want to make sure we have enough time for her. And that's also going to require me to ask our next presenter to wait after Carolyn. Would everyone be okay with that if we can wrap this conversation up and carry it forward to our next meeting? Because what I'm seeing and hearing is some additional confusion from the committee and maybe some additional information for us to make a decision at our next meeting. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
So we would continue this hearing to the next meeting is what we're asking the applicant to request for a continuation. Is that how it works?
That's how I think it works. That's my understanding.
I guess I would support that. I would also ask that Amy come back with a clearer ask and with some of the financials that we've asked for.
Great. Okay. Ian, did you have something quickly?
Yeah, my suggestion is that we ask staff to work with Amy to individually collate questions from this committee, share them with Amy so that Amy can come with answers to those specific questions from this committee and present them to us at our next meeting.
Yes, that's a great idea. Thank you, Ian.
I'll just put out that you guys can send the questions to me.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Amy. And
we
will dig deep. And if you can come back at our next meeting, that would be fabulous. And sorry for the time constraints, but thank you. So John, I know you are next on the agenda, but I'm going to respectfully ask if we can put Carolyn in front of you so she can get to her presentation in a timely fashion.
Okay.
So there we go. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Carolyn.
Okay, good. So I thank you. I apologize for my schedule scrunching. So I'm Carolyn Egan. I serve as the city's economic development director. And I wanted to quickly brief you. I just put a website in the chat. Might be easier for each of you to open that website on your own rather than me trying to share my screen. So you'll get to look at your own pace, not at the pace I run through. So on October 21st, you're probably very aware that the City Council gave staff permission to move forward with 2 maybe 3 really important items, and then a series of projects have rolled out from that. So the first is they agreed to, oh, thanks, Rachel. They agreed to create a emergency homelessness task force. The purpose of that task force being to bring together the top level service providers. So really the high level administrators at all of our local service providers and medical providers who provide homelessness services to advise the city manager on what we need to do to enhance, improve our homelessness services in the city of Bend and ultimately in Deschutes County. If you can think of the path from homelessness to stable housing as a bridge, I think it's fair to say that there are some planks missing and some ropes that have been frayed. Sometimes people can take a running start and get over those missing planks or tiptoe across that fraying railing, but they don't always find success moving from homelessness to stable housing. And so that task force is really meant to bring forward some ideas to the city manager, and then he would bring those to council. Council then agreed to really look at the issue much more comprehensively in their 2021-2023 goal setting. And I think this really fits with what at least some of the platforms were for the new councilors who have been elected to the Bend City Council. The second thing that the council allowed us permission to explore was the establishment of a temporary transitional shelter site in Juniper Ridge. Now I want to provide some detail here. The city of Bend does not have development code that allows us to site shelters. That is why we have to declare a winter emergency every year to get the winter warming shelter open. So what's different this time around is we have the city manager's emergency declaration. And in that declaration, we allow any private property owner to tell us they would like to use their parking lot or their building as a shelter. And so we were going to explore allowing ourselves to use that section of the emergency order to look at the feasibility of a temporary transitional shelter site at Juniper Ridge. The reason for this site is twofold. One, we own it, which is the obvious one, but the other is because of the fire that happened this summer in Juniper, in the north of the city's boundary. So that fire in August put thousands of housing units at risk. And if it had not been for the aerial assets being on the ground in Central Oregon, we would be having a very different conversation about the impacts of that fire. And so BNSF gave us a call and said, hey, we've had 2 incidents and one resulted in a fire with unauthorized vehicles crossing our railway. We would like you to secure the crossing of that railway so that you can keep your license. You all know that we have 1,000 acres of city-owned property north of the city limit, which is really the future of development, especially of employment for not just the city of Bend, but for the region. And so losing access across that railway is not an option for the city of Bend. And so we need to secure it. But in order to secure it, we would be basically blocking access to the campsites of about 75. We have about 75 campsites that are on that city-owned property in the county. And in order to not cut those members of our community off from their homes, we have to find them another home. And so that's one of the reasons that we're looking at the site at Juniper Ridge. And then we also are working, feels like 24/7, Lynn and Rachel, doesn't it? On making sure we have the shelter beds that we need in our community. So what the city council also agreed to, they said, we recognize that, you can see the little tent here. You can recognize that there are some short-term solutions that we need to pursue, like absolutely immediately. And it's a little bit like pushing a bunch of pool noodles across the pool all at once and seeing if you could really do it. But you can see we've had a little bit of success where we do have the applications open for any private property or public property owner to use their parking lots or their facility for overnight shelter. We had, thanks to Lynn's diligent work, we had 2 approvals under 4212 to get 2 temporary transitional sites on. They were not temporary though. They hopefully will stay as transitional shelter sites. You all have probably been following the warming shelter. So real success just in that short term. And we continue to evaluate the feasibility of a site in Juniper Ridge. The site in Juniper Ridge that we're looking at would be accessed off an extension of Cooley Road. So it would mean extending Cooley Road east with gravel, and the site would be north of that what would be the future Cooley Road, which will go across. It's the site that the city has planned for our future public works facility. And so we feel like that would be a place where we could put something up temporarily, but we would need to be under construction for that site. What it also is it's currently the rock crushing site for the North Interceptor work. And so, is largely flat. And when that rock crushing operation is complete, we would be able to use that site. But the continuum of housing is probably the more exciting plan. That is that we need more permanent housing. So when we're talking about the short term, we're really talking about making it safe to park in your car or to pop your tent up and not having to be hidden away in rights of way or on Juniper Ridge. But really, we wanted to make sure that we look to find ways to actually get more shelter beds. Like, one of the big problems is we have 1,000 people experiencing homelessness in Central Oregon, and I can only count some 75 shelter beds. Now I know there are more shelter beds than that. So, but we need 500 shelter beds. And I think that's what this medium term is really looking at how do we get more shelter beds. So one of those would be having the winter warming shelter stay open past March. The other would be other acquisitions that we could make to add shelter beds. And I'm totally open. The next person who finds me a warehouse that the property owner is willing to sell for a shelter, like, let me know. What can we find? But also understanding that there are some members of our community who are experiencing homelessness who would just prefer to keep camping. And how do we provide safer places for them to camp and not allow their preference for being outside for any number of reasons to be something that stops them from getting the services that they would need that would keep them on the road to re-enfranchising them into other aspects of life. And then the big piece, I guess, in the medium term is the city considering using land in Juniper Ridge to build a RV park campground. I keep thinking of Crown Villa. I'm fine if that's what came to your mind, but if you have another campground or RV park that works for you. But what we would do is build out a full RV park and it would be connected to sewer, connected to water. We would build roads and we would make some of the sites or all of the sites in that RV park ability to be subsidized. And so again, just a continued parking spot, safe parking spot. We have RVs all over the county. Some of them we allowed very specifically to respond to the wildfire housing need, but I live in the county and I definitely have neighbors who have family members and such living in RVs on their property. So we see that as a need, and then really work to make sure that we have all the zoning in place that we need so that shelters don't have to close once the winter declaration is over. And then long term, what council basically said, this isn't the worst idea I've ever heard, is we would like to redesignate some of the land in Juniper Ridge from employment to residential to allow the city to subdivide and then to be able to surplus and make land donations for affordable housing developers, for social service providers. Maybe the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office wants to put their office up there, but in order to build out more housing and really with a focus on building housing for those families and individuals who are at 30% of AMI and lower. So that's what we're working on. It has set off a series of projects that I am so overwhelmingly thrilled to be participating in, but have to admit that 2 mornings in the last 8 weeks, I have woken up and said, what have I just committed myself to? It has been quite a ride, and we're gonna continue on it. On Wednesday night, the council gave staff permission to pursue a turnkey application. So that is the state funding that's been available to acquire a hotel. to put shelter beds on the ground in Bend, in Deschutes County. And so we're working with partners to do that. And I think probably the next thing that would really come before this committee that I can think of is going to be the development code changes that would allow for shelter siting in the city of Bend as an allowable use. So that's what I've got. You can see these. Questions, shoot them. What do you got? What would you like to know that I didn't include in my presentation?
Cindy, could I ask a quick question?
Yes, thank you, Carolyn. I know you're on a time crunch, so we'll take questions as quick as possible. Yes, Kathy.
So Carolyn, in the managed homeless camp, I would assume there'll be things like porta potties and trash collection of some sort. That those are some of the things that the neighbors were concerned about, is, you know, kind of managing it as opposed to letting it run wild, of course, is better. But just in terms of that management, what facilities are being provided?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question, Kathy. So what we had envisioned, if we can determine that the site, the actual ground is feasible to go ahead and put a camp on, it would be gravel. So it would be rudimentary, a dry camping environment. And so we would have portable sanitation. So porta potties, hand washing stations. We would have something that gives it a barrier, but we really wanted to think about not turning it into that looked like a camp or like the wrong kind of camp. And then we would have the shower truck would be something that would come occasionally. We would make sure social service providers had access and a place to provide service in a COVID safe way. There would be some food prep facilities so that we wouldn't have the open flame risk. That is what we're battling right now. And then we fully expect we would have a contractor in place. So there would be someone who would be actually on site managing the camp. So there'd be good neighbor agreements. There would be some rules of engagement about, you know, how to act while you're at this site. And very likely limited. We're not gonna have 100 campsites. This is gonna be like 20. So that's what we had imagined. The city manager's emergency declaration requires a managed component of any of these locations. So whether it's a church parking lot, we need to have a managed component, or if we give our land to this for this temporary transitional shelter site, we would also make sure it was managed.
And trash collection would be a big part of it, right? Because a lot of the neighbors are upset about that. Yeah, it seems to make a whole lot of sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carolyn, do you have time for any additional questions? I'm looking for any hands raised. I'm not seeing any, but.
Okay.
I can raise my hand if we have time.
Yeah, please.
Snuck his up.
I'll do two. I'll do two.
Okay, Ian and then Matt, please. Thank you. Ian. You got to unmute yourself, Ian. One moment.
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Excellent. Carolyn, I appreciate the presentation. Thank you very much. Also, as a neighbor to this site, I appreciate the concern and thought the city's put into it. I'm confident we do not have enough time to go through all the questions you may get from this committee. So my question will be, what's the best way for committee members to correspond with you and get questions answered with respect to your next meeting and other engagements?
Great. I can come back as many times as you like. I'm sorry the timing didn't work out today. What we know that we've made a commitment to schedule a series of listening sessions with the neighbors after Thanksgiving holiday, so that we can hear more about, you know, what they would need to feel like this was a something that they could host in their neighborhood. And then we will widely publicize any of the public process that would be in place for the development code changes. But I'm happy to come back and talk about, this isn't going to be a one and done. I think this is going to be one of the new services you see the city engaging in much more actively and potentially providing a large leadership role over the next couple of years.
And Ian, I think real quick, Lynn and Rachel will probably be able to collect questions from us, from a committee. If you have ideas fresh in your mind now, we can just gather them all now and have those ready for Carolyn the next time she comes back, or sooner.
And they can probably answer 2/3 of them, to be honest. They've been like, we've been locked arms as we've gone through all those last couple of weeks.
Also, check out the website in the back page. It has lots of information on it.
Yes, really good.
Yeah,
website.
I found a lot of answers to my questions on the website already. And so I do appreciate that. So I suppose the one question I have that I don't see answered yet on the website is I would like to put as much of my ability to support this as I can. So how can I do that?
I don't know. That's a great, thank you. I don't know. Let me think about that one. I'm not sure. Wow. I'm like a whole bunch of work I could assign you right now. No, but let me think about that.
And I just point out that the website has a place that you can fill in your name, last name, and email for updates.
Carolyn, maybe we could schedule you to come back sometime early in the new year when it makes sense, probably right after we're done with the funding considerations. And I do just want to let folks know, please feel free to email me. If you have additional questions, I'll make sure Carolyn gets them. And if it makes sense to forward the answers right then, that's great. If it makes sense to have her cover it in a future discussion, I think that makes sense too. But then Carolyn, you're free. I could go off. I'm so sorry about all the confusion with time.
Oh, no problem. I'm thank you for having me. Yeah, send questions away. And thank you for being partners on this really important work.
Thank you, Carolyn. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, you as well.
And Cindy, I think we have John queued up.
Yes.
So Kathy or Juan, can one of you all move him?
Actually,
maybe
he
I can move him over.
is, I already sent him the ask to unmute. He just has to do it on his end now.
Okay. And John does not have a camera on the device he's using. So I think we'll
he's
oh, yeah.
He's there.
Are you there, John? We cannot hear you.
He is unmuted.
Juan, do you think it would help to move him over to panelist?
I can do that.
Is this for the Coiner Hollow discussion? Okay.
And we might be able to kind of jury rig a solution here through my cell phone if need be.
I also
that's definitely not preferable.
I just moved him. I don't know if that will help.
Okay. All right, John, try again.
You are muted. So let me see if I can undo that.
All right, I see John's name.
It's not coming up for some reason.
Here, hello.
There it goes. There it goes.
Yay.
There you are. Hi, John.
Okay, hello everybody. Can you hear me okay? Is the volume okay? Sound okay?
Yes.
I can see Kathy's nodding. Okay. All right. Great. Thanks guys for having me join you. I really appreciate it. I think this is the second or third attempt that we have at doing this agenda item. So this is, shall I just jump right in, Lynn and Rachel? Good.
Yeah, so just, I guess for quick background, John is one of the directors of Pacific Crest Affordable Housing Principal. I can't remember your title, but anyway, he's in charge. And he and his team put forth a successful application for what's now known as Coiner Hollow surplus property. And for those of you who are new on the committee, the city works to surplus property whenever possible. We typically sell it for our cost, so it's typically far less than market. Many of these properties, as you're about to hear, have quite a bit of work that needs to happen before they're really developable. And so because John, you all had asked John to come and talk about whether or not he intended to proceed and his team with this property, he's responding to that at this point. So we just got a little bit delayed for a variety of reasons, including COVID. And so finally pulling this together. John, thank you so much for your patience and flexibility today. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure to join you guys. Thank you. So the property in question, for those who are new to the committee, is located on 9th Street, Southeast 9th Street, just south of the First Presbyterian Church, kind of across the street from the Bend High park, kind of like parking lot entrance that's sort of near the football field. And this whole part of town, I don't know when it was platted, but the whole area is just kind of, it was just done in a very shoddy, kind of unorganized, unprofessional way. I'm thinking it was platted maybe in the 60s, but perhaps it was platted when Bend High was constructed. I don't know when that was exactly, but anyway, it's just, it's sort of a bit of a mishmash, this area. If you start looking at actually where streets are that aren't actually streets. So the city has a long skinny lot that's located on Southeast 9th, and there are 2 streets that are platted, but they're actually not built on either side of this lot. And so the city kind of looked at all this and thought, okay, we've got this surplus land, which I think is about 3 acres, if I remember correctly. It's long and skinny with a skinny end on Southeast 9th, and the western half of it is fairly developable, but the eastern half of it is really tough to develop. Are you guys hearing me okay? Yes, okay. And the eastern half is pretty darn tough to develop. It's very rocky, not just rocky, but very up and down. There's no public utilities to it. And it's kind of just behind the backsides of a bunch of different properties. So we looked at it, and then we also looked at all the undeveloped land that First Presbyterian Church has. And we thought, we kind of like the church's land more for residential development. And the church was kind of interested in expanding at some point, perhaps, and thought that it might be easier or better to expand on their same sort of topographical level as the existing church and parking lot. And so we started talking to them about a land swap and actually getting the land from the city of Bend and then doing a land swap with the church and then developing the affordable housing on land, which is currently church land. And so what we came up with was a plan to do 18 for sale cottages that would front on Southeast 10th Street, and then at the north end of the Presbyterian Church property, we would create 8 lots and sell them to Habitat for Humanity, and they would build 8 cottages there. So we'd have a total of 26 cottages. And the project was pretty darn complicated from the beginning, but it got more complicated, as I shared with you last time I spoke with you guys, which was probably about 9 months ago or so. So the way that we left it with you about 9 months ago was that we would we were kind of leaning against or away from pursuing the development of this, just because it was just getting more and more complicated and more difficult to pencil. And the way that we left it with you about 9 months ago was that we would take one more look at it in the summer, and we would either come back to you with a proposal that was a realistic proposal that would say, yes, we can do this, or thank you, but no thank you. We need to pull back from it. And I'm here to say thank you, but no thank you on this land. Unfortunately, it just started to get more and more complicated to the point where it just started to be probably not from a probably just simply too complicated and too difficult to make pencil. As you also know, we have Canal Commons that got funded for 48 apartments for low-income households, and that we're very close to getting a certificate of occupancy on that project. And we got funded for phase 2, so we have 48 more affordable apartments that are going to be breaking ground in the spring for a total of 96. So I can walk you through on this one, if you would like, what challenges there were that were from the beginning, but then the additional challenges that kind of came up over the course of the project. I'd be happy to go through that long list of challenges if you would like, or for the sake of time, I can skip that. So what would you guys like from me?
Well, John, thank you. I actually have your outline here. I've saved it.
Okay, great.
It's almost like a title report nightmare for people that are really familiar with real estate, where everything that can and will go wrong. It was crazy. So if you just want to mention a couple things real quick,
Okay.
that would be great.
Sure.
I just remember that a main gas line is right in the middle of the property and that can't be moved. I remember that one stood out to me
Yeah.
as pretty drastic.
Right, and that actually came to everybody's attention fairly late in the game. That was not under. I don't believe we all realized that that was there at first. It seems like that came. It seems like about a year ago is when that kind of came to our collective attention. All right, why don't I skip all of the challenges that were kind of the original challenges and just kind of review with you real quick then what sort of new challenges came up. And so the street, which would be Southeast 10th Street, which is the street that is just in that residential neighborhood below First Presbyterian Church. The city would require us to widen that street by 6 feet. We had carports that were originally facing the street. The city had some concerns, which I think were some legitimate concerns about backing into the street. So they wanted the carports turned 90 degrees, which reduced our developable area. And then the information that we got from city engineering with regards to infrastructure changed, or at least in my opinion, it shifted or changed a little bit. And so to do this with the cottage code in that southern parcel, it looked like, after working with city engineering, it looked like we would be looking at about 10 versus 18 homes. So the number of homes got reduced materially. Other off-site infrastructure requirements that the city was going to require were estimated to cost about $300,000 to $400,000, which included looping a water line. Where there's a street called Emerson and another street called DeKalb, and each of those streets has houses on them with water lines that sort of go down the street and then end. And the city wanted us to basically complete a loop there, amongst other things. So we talked with Lynn and with Eric King about possibly seeing if we could get the city council to agree to just waive these offsite requirements for us. We were advised that that probably would not be approved by the city council, and that, you know, I think the city said, yeah, you can try if you want, but we don't recommend it. So we didn't pursue that. And then there were some CDBG funds that were available, and I think they're available annually. And the thought was that we are for profit, and CDBG funds are for non-profits. So we could team up with a not-for-profit, but that just seemed a little bit tough, because if we were going to do that, then that nonprofit would not be able to seek CDBG funds for other things that they might want to. And so that just seemed like that was going to be difficult to structure. So that's just the list of just some of the things that came up after we were awarded this project. So kind of in summary, it's fewer homes, more offsite expenses equals more difficulty making the thing pencil. So, and just I think it sounds, Cindy, you got my outline from a month ago, I think, just to sort of continue down that. While I've got your ear, our opinion, and I know that this is not the city's policy right now, but if the city can tee these projects up as much as possible, it would certainly be helpful. And so in this case, what the city potentially could have done, and I know that city, you know, it's just Lynn and Rachel, and they're busy already, you know, handling everything that they're doing. So I'm not sure exactly who would do all this, but if, for example, the vacations had been, you know, if somebody had worked with the neighboring property owners and gotten the vacations squared away so that we knew exactly what we were looking at with regards to the shape of the lot and the size of the lot, that certainly would have been helpful. And then to have surveying work done in advance would have been helpful. Getting the thing rezoned in advance would have been helpful as well. It would have been, the site then becomes just a lot easier to just jump into and develop. We have also gone through some of these similar kinds of things with the Canal Commons land. It was originally the city put together an RFP when it was zoned RS, and it had to get zoned to M, so mixed, medium density residential, RM. And anyway, I'm just taking my 45 seconds here to make the plug that if the city can tee these excess or surplus properties up for development, I know that costs money because staff's, staff has a limit. There's a limited amount of staff time that can get invested in different things, but it certainly would help these projects get developed. I think that's kind of it for the most part. I certainly want to express on behalf of everybody at Pacific Crest our sincere appreciation for being invited to participate in the RFP. And to have been awarded this project was certainly an honor and something that we were very excited about, especially just the possible team that we had with First Interstate Church and Bend Habitat for Humanity. We were quite excited about the synergies of just bringing together different groups that all have Bend's best interests in mind. But it just became too complicated and difficult to make pencil. So we are officially here saying thank you for this opportunity, but we will not pursue it.
Thank you, John, for that. Now, so that was funded, I believe, back in 2017, and it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was $450,000. Is that the correct amount?
That sounds about right to me, but I can't remember. Ian's shaking his head yes, so, and thumbs up.
And I do recall the level of energy and partnership that you had, and it just kept dominoing with just kind of bad news and more bad news. It was like a bad book. But so
we tried.
So with and we did give you the summer, we wanted to extend it to August for you to see what you could do. And I'm thinking, are you asking us to do something else with those funds, reallocate, or asking what we can do with that? And then my second question or comment is, I was going to segue to Lynn on how the city is managing, as you say, teeing up these properties. I'll have Lynn answer that here shortly. But do you have a request for with not doing this project? What do you want to ask the committee, or what are you proposing for us?
We do not have an ask for you with
Okay.
regards to that 450,000.
Okay. Thank you, John. Thanks for all your work on that. That took a lot of time.
Well, you're welcome. We were really excited about it, and we came up with, for example, we came up with a house design that is just, we spent a lot of time. Actually, we have designs for these cottages, and they were going to be small, of course, but they were going to have huge windows and really usable, good floor plans. And anyway, we were quite excited about it, but we're sad to not move forward with it. But it's what needs to happen.
Right, and maybe those plans can be used in a future project. I have learned that things I learned in the past can sometimes benefit me in the future. Yeah. So Lynn, can I maybe put you on the spot and have you inform the committee with this 450,000 that was awarded to them? What can we do with that to bring it back in, and then maybe answer, how the city can help plan for these, surplus properties and the process that the city's come up with, kind of with this as the sample of what we want to avoid in the future, if at all possible.
Yeah, first, just wanted to say thanks to John for coming in and filling in the committee. I appreciate that. I know you and I have had a lot of conversations before getting here, but particularly in sort of pushing you back through a handful of meetings, really appreciate your flexibility. So with that 450, I think what we will do is put it into this round's applications. If for some reason, because we are about to start deliberations, I should say you all are about to start deliberations for funding. So that would add a pretty good amount. If for some reason there are not applications that would take up the entire increased amount, which I don't think is the case, but just in case, then anything would roll forward. Or if there's some sort of crazy, world event, we could probably do an off-season RFP. I'm a little hesitant to say that because who knew what 2020 was going to throw at us when we first were doing our work the early part of the year. But hopefully we will not have any more pandemics or world events that would cause us to have an off-season RFP. But we are prepared to do that if that's absolutely what was necessary. My suspicion is that there will be enough applications that you all are interested in funding that this could benefit sort of the current round. As for sort of the future, yeah, I mean, I think some of the discussions that we've had with John and his team, both about the Pointer Hollow property and also, as you all know, Canal Commons 1 and now 2 are going on another surplus parcel right next to Empire and Butler Market. And that also had absurd title issues, et cetera. I think these properties sometimes are kind of like, you pay for what you get and it's less than it would be on the market. And so there are issues that come along. I would love, to be honest with you, to be able to do a lot more work up front, but I think it is really capacity. And so I appreciate John's comments in that. What we are doing now is, I should say, we haven't released any RFPs this way, but we hope to have some pretty soon, is requiring pre-apps ahead of time. We are going through the process of surveying a couple parcels and hopefully getting those ready to divide. Sometimes we don't know quite how to do that until we see what proposals we're working with. And so it may be sort of a case-by-case scenario in terms of how much we do upfront. But thankfully, something that has changed since this property was surplus is we now have a property manager in the city of Bend again. one person, but he is rocking and rolling and has been a huge asset to Rachel and I as we look at these properties and try to get them ready to go out the door. So we're trying to do as much as we feel like we can upfront, and then also ensuring that people know some of these weird, crazy things that only probably would have come up through a pre-app before application. So for the parcels that are coming out, unless they are super straightforward, which I'll say is almost never with these surplus lots, we are going to require a pre-app as a condition of applying for the parcel. Does that make sense? And then I think through that, we can really talk about whose role is whose, what makes sense for the city to do, what makes sense for the applicant to do, et cetera. Here are some things that you really need to know up front before you spend all the time getting ready to submit an application. Here are the critical components. So we're sort of realigning that process. I hope to have a couple of these parcels out the door, ideally this spring, and we'll go from there. Did that answer your question, Cindy?
That was fabulous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. And the round that's coming up next are affordable housing funds, not CDBG funds, correct?
So we have both. So you guys will almost immediately after this meeting get a whole bunch of fun Thanksgiving week reading. That will be coming. And the good news is this year you have a month almost to read them. So that is great, great, great news. And, hopefully nobody has trouble falling asleep. I'm just kidding, but they're really great, honestly. So we'll do affordable housing in one batch and then CDBG, I think, in the next batch after that. So.
Okay, yeah, so affordable housing is the first batch. I mean, I know there's both, but we'd like to keep them in order so we can keep them straight. Yes.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you for the holiday reading coming up.
Anytime.
All right. Well, we're doing pretty good with our schedule today. A little bit behind, but thanks for being flexible. Russ Grayson, I think you're here. You are going to give us an update on the new permitting system that's coming online. Are you ready to go?
I am ready to go. I just want to do, because I know everyone is looking forward to a robust discussion about the new permitting software late on a Friday afternoon. So I just real quick check on time. I just want to make sure I know how much time I have before I get started.
You have 1 minute.
I can do it. I told Lynn I can go from 1 minute to 20 minutes. So I can do it whatever.
Permitting software to me, Russ. Talk permitting software.
So I won't give the full presentation.
-6.
Thanks, Barb. You've heard this enough already, right? I will just give you a quick update. We are going live with the software. We're in that. We're actually. This was the critical week of training. One of the critical weeks for training for our crew. The go live date is December 14th, which is, I think at this point, I believe it's 14 working days from today. Just a couple critical things for, we're just trying to get the word out to everybody. If you're using the software, if you're using our current permitting software now for inspections and everything else, we're going to have what we call kind of a dark period with the permit center starting next Wednesday at 4 o'clock before Thanksgiving, all the way through until we turn the system on December 14th, where we're going to have limited operations. We're going to keep our inspections going in the field to make sure field operations continue, but people will not be able to apply for new permits, and we won't be able to process process new permits or existing permits for that 2-week period. We do have the ability to keep some land use applications moving that are on the kind of the infamous Oregon land use clock. We've found ways to do that. We will be offering training sessions over the 2 weeks after Thanksgiving to the public and to our customer base. The schedule will be on the website. We'll get information to Lynn that she can forward out if you are interested. But we are just getting the word out to everybody that when we go live on December 14th, it's going to be a much more user-friendly system. It's going to be one that is going to operate in this current, with what I call the current technology that we have out in the world, and will be very familiar to people. You'll be able to pay online, submit online. You will hopefully have less interaction with our staff, just in terms of processing, and we can all focus on answering project questions related and not questions about how do I submit a permit, because everything will be online. And we're really excited about it. We're just in that big transition phase, and our staff is really got a lot on their plates right now as we start to get ready and then migrate. We've got over 3,000 permits and records that we need to migrate from the old system to the new system, so it's no small task. And this involves everything from planning applications, building permit applications, engineering, but also code enforcement, how people are going to pay their short-term rental taxes, as well as franchise fees. It's how you get burn permits through the fire department. So there's a lot of consolidating that's going on, but hopefully it'll make the system much more friendly to the public. And there's my spiel on a Friday afternoon. I can answer any questions. Is that good enough, Barb? Wasn't -6, but it's about as tight as I can make it.
That was great. Thank you, Russ. That's some big changes, but I know you guys will be ready. Barb, did you have your hand up, or were you just giving him the thumbs up? No. Okay. Thumbs up. All right. I don't see any hands raised, Russ. So thank you for the update. Appreciate your time.
Hey, no problem. And everybody have a great weekend and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And I'm sure I will see you again in the very near future.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
So Lynn, are you going to do the intro for the supplemental fee discussion
Yeah.
that's next on our agenda? We're doing pretty good, but go ahead.
Let's do it, and let's see. So y'all might crack up. My screen is such that for some reason I have dual screens, and when I open my laptop, they flip. And so I have to go left to go right with the mouse. So hopefully what is showing now looks like a PowerPoint in slide presenter mode. Is that correct?
It looks good so far. Homeless funding work session. Okay.
Success. All right. So this is a presentation I gave to council. I'm going to give you guys the very abbreviated version of this, just partly because they did not ask you all to make any sort of judgment on this. I just felt like it was something you might want to know about, might be interested in, and so wanted to keep you in the loop. So this will look very similar to a presentation I gave to many of you in early 2019. We were considering a supplemental fee, is what we were calling it at the time. You all in BDAB weighed in, and that was at that time, I think we hadn't really programmed in the uses quite well enough. And so the feedback you all gave and BDAB gave was, let's not create fees unless we're super sure about what we're going to use it for. So that was great feedback, and council listened. So here we are. At some point recently, as you guys heard, I think it was important for Carolyn to talk a little bit about sort of the legal context that we are operating in around homelessness. The really amazing opportunity that has come out of it is that I think really all throughout City Hall, folks are embracing our need to act. And so we have created a handful of opportunities. Carolyn talked about many of them, and I'm going to tell you about this one, if I can advance my slide appropriately. Let's see, going right, going left. There it is.
Up, down should fix that for you.
Oh, good. Yeah, because, okay. So as you all know, our affordable housing fee, which funds much of what you guys will be funding in the next month, was adopted in 2006. We were the first in the state to have an affordable housing fund. It is assessed on all permits that have valuation, commercial, residential, industrial, etc. Affordable housing developers pay this. Other taxing jurisdictions pay it when they do work at 0.33%. So roughly our biennial budget estimated us to be about 1.3 million annually, which lets us get a little over $1 million out the door. Whoa, wrong way. So after we passed our affordable housing fee, a couple groups got together and decided to make it not possible for other cities to do that. We were grandfathered in, thankfully, but that prohibition was only lifted in 2017. And what is now known as our construction excise tax, that's the same as the Affordable Housing Fund. With that lifting of the prohibition, a whole bunch of new rules were put in place. And these rules are very different for residential properties versus commercial and industrial. So if you assess residential properties, a certain percentage has to go back to the state. That does return to the area, but it returns for a very specific use and may not be within the city's control. It could go to a nonprofit, for instance, to allocate. So council really didn't have much interest in that. And instead, I think still are asking us to look at commercial industrial, which the the restrictions within that are that 50% of whatever proceeds we make off of commercial and industrial property permit valuation, 50% has to go to housing programs and the other 50% is unrestricted. So no money back to the state. So here is the slide that we presented to council. The far right here is the commercial and industrial option. And really, I think what they're looking at is in part how much should be assessed. So if you look at the far right, a new commercial or industrial fee assessed at 0.17. So that means that it would be a 0.5% fee for all the commercial and industrial buildings, including our existing fee, would raise roughly $300,000 annually. At 0.33%, so all in total fee for commercial and industrial would be 0.2%, would come up with just under $600,000. And if we wanted to take the fee all the way up to 1%, and again, this is the combination of the new fee at 0.67 and the old fee at 0.33, we could potentially see revenue of 1.2 million. Council is most interested in this middle option, commercial and industrial at 0.33. So that would mean the fee for those properties would be about 0.2% total. Residential, again, just isn't touched by this. And so those are the revenue options that we presented to council. Here's a couple of examples. And just so you know, that third column over, that's the existing affordable housing fee. So the property, these are actual properties. These are just quick examples. I'll just go through it. Northeast, it was in Northeast Bend. The valuation on that permit was $633,000. The existing fee for affordable housing fund was $2,090 basically. And then if you totaled in, so of the green columns, that 0.5% permit, that's if we assess this new fee at 0.17. Does this make sense? Sometimes it's really hard sometimes to present on Zoom because I can't see everybody's faces. And if there are a lot of confused looks, I don't always see it until I've kind of moved past. So, so here are kind of the three options that might be possible depending on what that would look like to a consumer if this fee is assessed. And proposed program elements. So you all felt like this was really important to get upfront before we're assessing any fees. And council is interested in using this for that 30% AMI and under, or homeless services, as well as development of units for that income level. There is also a discussion of childcare, supporting childcare generally. And here's the nexus with all of this stuff and with the business community, is that the business community really asked council for two things over the past biennium. One of them was, we need housing for our employees, and please help us with this homeless business. And the second one was, we need childcare for our employees. Our employees cannot come to work if they don't have adequate childcare. So that's kind of the tie between this new fee landing on commercial and industrial, is because it really does respond to the two things that the business community asked council for over the last biennium. So that is the like super quick and dirty version. It's really just informational for you guys at this point. I will say that the plan is that I will be coming to council to propose this. Whoops, I think I'm still sharing. Okay, hang on, did something wrong. Can anybody take away my control because I did something weird? There it is, stop share. Okay, that was on a completely different screen also. I'm sorry, you guys. Anyway, so December 2nd, they'll be having a hearing to finalize the uses of the fee, whether or not childcare is included, because I think that that was the piece that people weren't 100% on council, and also to finalize the level. Right now, it's being proposed as that 0.33 middle option, which would give us roughly 600,000 a year to work with. Happy to answer questions. I do know that we're getting close to the end though. So,
Can I ask? Yeah, thank you.
Kathy.
Lynn, what was the rationale for not going to the 0.67? It seems like it's such a dire need that if we can go up to 1%, my inclination would be to go to 1%. It's not going to kill a project to be at 1%. But
great question. My understanding and kind of how I'm looking at this, I would say, and Barb, you are welcome to jump in here if you want to answer that, but I think that Ben has a great history of doing this work and of using the money that we have wisely. We've done a lot with not a whole bunch of money for affordable housing over the years. And so I think our community is used to us trying new things at sort of a lower level and then proving that it's going to work before we go big. So I think that's my perception of what the reason was for keeping it potentially at that mid range. I will say that staff is prepared if council decides to go up or down from that to have that happen at the hearing next 2 weeks from now.
So it's something that could change if they started at that level and decided that it was great, it was doing really well, but we could really use some more. There's the opportunity to bump it up in the future.
Yes.
Okay.
If it's okay, Cindy, I'd love to not necessarily cut this short. Please encourage everybody to watch if you guys are interested for the hearing on the 2nd, and feel free to submit your sort of personal comments as you wish. And then maybe we could move into the staff report. Is that okay, Cindy?
The staff report updates. Yes, thank you, Lynn. Thanks.
Okay, and feel free
that recap.
if y'all have. Oh, sorry.
No, just thanks for that recap, and you've got the floor.
If you all have questions, please feel free to send those to me directly. I'm more than happy to answer also. So, okay, handful of things. You guys have some of these on your agenda. So Bend Parks and Recreation District has a work session. They had one this past week on Tuesday about increasing the unit cap or removing that unit cap for SDCs for parks. As you all know, we were awarded 400 units to play with and exempt over the past few years. We exceeded our projections, I think in part because they exempted these units for us. And so council went back to ask for more. So they had a work session with staff this week. I'm going back on the 1st, that's at 5:30. And I expect, or what they expect to do is make that decision in the meeting following. I would say this is not a done deal. Very much not a done deal. So I do know that the advocates are pretty worked up and paying attention. Somebody on that call last week mentioned that they had gotten a lot of testimony. Did want to make sure that you all were aware of it. Right now, they're not accepting live public comment, so it has to be letters. Again, if you guys want information on that, more than happy, but feel free to watch me if you haven't heard me talk enough in the last week or two. Planning Commission is recruiting, as is one other committee. That recruitment ends on the 2nd. And so please take a look. That's all on our committee page on the website. If you know of anyone who might be a good fit for Planning Commission, please encourage them to apply. Again, email me if you need the link and can't find it. We talked about the new fee being heard on December 2nd. And we did send out that survey after our equity and housing meeting. We got a few really great comments back, so we will email those to you guys after this. I did want to make sure that you had time to read those, so you'll get that after. If you are interested in sort of having that as a discussion item at future meetings, I'm wide open to that possibility. I think Cindy is as well. So why don't you get in touch with her maybe, or me, and we can kind of combine forces on that one. So Carolyn, let you guys know House Bill 4212, that was passed in a special legislative session in May by the Oregon State Legislature. It allowed for a lot of things. Cities can now do virtual public meetings a lot more easily and things like that. It also had what we call the shelter supersiting provision in it, which allows for, as basically to alleviate COVID and ensure that folks aren't out camping and spreading the virus unnecessarily, allowed for shelters to cite a 90-day window from when that bill was signed until the expiration of that application period, which was September. We received 4 applications. 2 of them have been approved. That's Veterans Village, which many of you know about, and St. Vincent de Paul. They will be operating emergency shelters. We do have some information I'm happy to send along as appropriate, or you can contact those groups directly. The 2 additional applications were really just submitted to start the conversation. One of them was for a managed camp at Juniper Ridge. So those ones really weren't complete applications. I do need to follow up a little bit more with the folks with that, but hopefully they are pleased with where the city is going in that direction also. So very exciting. The groups did a phenomenal job of putting together really nice applications that were complete. Their process at this point is to obtain building permits. So the application approval is conditional until building permits are obtained. They have to comply with health and safety through the building code. And that was really the best way to demonstrate that, was to go through and get a building permit. So they will have 2 years, I believe, to become operational after the building permits are secured. So I expect to hear more from those people probably pretty soon. So
Lynn, can I just
Carolyn,
ask St. Vincent de Paul and who else?
Veterans Village, which is sort of a joint application between Bend Heroes Foundation and COVO, as well as the Deschutes County. Actually, they're very involved as well.
Okay, thanks.
We do have a city manager's emergency declaration. We actually have several right now: wildfires, COVID, winter, etc. And one of the things that the declaration allows for is for safe parking, as Carolyn mentioned. So we do have an application for that available to the public. If you know of folks who might like to host people on their property, there is a requirement for case management and basically supervision. So there are some things that you have to prove you can do, but that is out there. So please contact me or Rachel if you want, or Carolyn, more information on that. We're happy to send the application out. Again, with the COVID declaration, all of these uses under COVID, not under 4212, under the COVID declaration, are only good through the term of phase 2 of the governor's order. So these uses will have to end when that COVID phase 2, when we move forward into phase 3. So just know that all of these things are temporary and cease to exist after. And then Carolyn mentioned Project Turnkey as well. That's really exciting. We are looking and working with the community to potentially purchase a motel to house folks, which is really exciting and a great opportunity. So Rachel, did you want to talk about anything else before we wrap up?
Could I please? I'm sorry, I'm not Rachel.
Go ahead, Barb.
Rachel. Could I'll just say two things. The two committees that have openings, in my way of thinking, it's like the very most difficult and the very easiest. It's Planning Commission, whose workload might be heavier than even City Council is. And then the other is the Budget Committee, which only formally meets every 2 years. So those are the two applications are being taken. And then the other is I heard back from Morgan Schmidt, who is a pastor at First Pres. I am going, a bunch of us elected people have been invited to tour the cold shelter that First Presbyterian is hosting. It's this weekend, so sorry for the late notice. Lynn, I think, or Kathy is gonna forward on an email and you can reply to that email or get in touch with me if you would like to go and see how beautifully they've set up a cold shelter there in their church. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving. It's all yours now, Rachel.
Thank you, Barb.
I just wanted to make sure that you all had on your schedule the funding schedule for the proposals. Again, tonight I will email you all out the Affordable Housing Fund proposals. And just keep in mind that December 9th, we will hear those proposal presentations. So please, give some preliminary scores before those presentations, so that all you're doing really is asking the questions that you need to ask and kind of firming up what your scoring would be. And then because right after that, I will send out the CDBG proposals. And again, that will be January 13th that those presentations occur. And you want to be preliminarily scoring those until the presentations occur. And then on January 22nd, which is not a date listed in here, I'm going to ask for your scores to be to me so that those scores can all go out to the committee on January 29th for deliberating. So it's a really tight schedule. I recommend you at least reading and kind of preliminarily scoring a couple proposals a week from now until January 22nd. Thank you.
I think I was wrong. I think your job is harder than Planning Commission.
One quick follow-up question, Lynn, the safe parking possibility, is that just within city limits or is it county also? Do you know?
Right now, it's just within city that I know about. I'm not sure if the county has kind of an equivalent declaration. I'd be happy to follow up and find out if they do.
If that's easy for you, I'd love to know. Yeah.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Hey, Lynn, the one that's on Dean Swift, the RVs, there's like the 4 RVs for families, and the one that doesn't have to disappear when the COVID, does it?
It does. Yeah. Sorry, my dog is barging in back here, so I apologize for the noise. Yeah, so that one is the first application that was approved by us at Dawn's house. Set up
Dawn's
4
house,
RVs. Right. Yeah, for residents, and then a 5th for kind of a site manager, I guess. And so the same gentleman owns the property underneath Dawn's house as this one that the RVs are. Yeah, so unfortunately it is just a temporary use. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Thanks for that recap, Lynn. And you're going to be really busy here. Well, you always are, but the next 6 months. So if there's no additional comments or input, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, so much, and have a great Thanksgiving. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, everyone. Your work
Thanks
is
all.
amazing.